She gave up everything. They became everything. In the tapestry of everyday life, there exists a form of sacrifice that rarely makes headlines or finds space in grand speeches: the silent kind. It is the kind made without applause, often without acknowledgement, and sometimes without even recognition from those it benefits most. This is the sacrifice made by a woman who chooses others over herself, not once but daily, in decisions so small they seem invisible, and yet collectively they define the trajectory of entire lives. The silent sacrifice isn't dramatic. It doesn't arrive with ultimatums or farewells. It's the quiet decision to pause a career to raise children, to say no to an opportunity because the timing would strain the family, or to carry emotional weight so others can move freely. It's found in skipped meals, missed calls, unread books, and unsent applications. Not out of lack of ambition, but because someone had to hold the center while everyone else revolved. These choices are often internal, made instinctively and without hesitation. Over time, they become normalized, expected even. This is where the power and tragedy of silent sacrifice lies, in its invisibility. The world praises resilience, strength, and selflessness, but rarely pauses to ask what is lost in the process. And because women have long been conditioned, culturally, emotionally, even generationally, to carry this weight as a duty, their personal loss is often reframed as noble rather than costly. What makes such sacrifice profound is not only what is given up, but how consistently it's done. It is not a one-time gesture. It is the daily erasure of personal wants in favor of collective needs. A woman might set aside creative expression, career aspirations, educational goals, or even basic rest, not because she lacks desire or drive, but because the moment demands someone dependable. And more often than not, she chooses to be that someone. Yet the world tends to measure value by visibility. Contributions that are loud, measurable, or monetized are recognized. The labor of love, emotional regulation, caregiving, and simply being the person everyone leans on, these often go unnoticed. But just because the sacrifice is silent doesn't mean it is small. In truth, it is the foundation upon which families are built and futures are secured. Recognizing silent sacrifice does not mean glorifying self-erasure. It means valuing emotional labor, giving space for acknowledgement, and creating room for those who have held others up to also rise. It means understanding that giving everything should not mean becoming nothing. For every achievement reached by those she supported, a part of her was poured in. Unseen, yes, but undeniably essential. Her choices may not echo in speeches or titles, but they resonate in the lives. There are dreams that blaze brightly, chased, celebrated, and fulfilled. And then there are dreams that are quietly folded away, not because they lacked value or potential, but because life demanded a different kind of investment. In the story of many women, especially those who shoulder the role of caregiver, nurturer, or emotional anchor, there lies a profound reality: the intentional shelving of personal dreams. These dreams come in many forms. They may be tied to careers that once sparked ambition, creative pursuits that stirred the soul, educational goals that ignited curiosity, or even simply the desire to travel, learn, or be seen in the world for something beyond roles. These were not idle fantasies. They were real, alive, and within reach. But for her, they became quiet passengers, paused not out of weakness, but from an overwhelming need to prioritize someone else's journey. The decision to set dreams aside is often framed as a temporary detour, just for a little while. But time has a way of stretching, and so do responsibilities. Children grow, partners evolve, and life continues to shift. The moments she imagined returning to herself are deferred again and again until one day she realizes how much time has passed. The dreams are still there, but they've aged, just like she has. In shelving her aspirations, she also often set aside pieces of her identity. A woman may begin as someone full of vision and fire, but as roles multiply, mother, wife, daughter-in-law, caretaker, the space for self diminishes. The world applauds her for being everything to everyone, yet rarely pauses to ask, what did she once want for herself? She becomes defined by service, not by selfhood, and this, over time, can blur the lines between who she is and who she was meant to become. It's important to understand that this isn't about regret as much as it is about recognition. She may not resent the choices she made, but that doesn't mean the cost wasn't real. The dreams she shelved were not abandoned in bitterness, but placed gently aside in love, with the sincere hope that those she supported would thrive because of her choices. In that sense, her sacrifice wasn't a surrender, it was a strategy. She planted seeds not expecting to reap the harvest herself, but to watch it bloom in others. Still, the conversation must shift. Valuing her sacrifice also means asking what it would take to bring her dreams back into view. It's not too late to unshelve them, to reawaken what once mattered deeply, and to honor the person behind the provider. Because no dream deserves to live in the shadows forever, especially not the ones that were given up so others could live in the light.
When someone gives everything, it is often so others can become everything. That is the quiet, complex truth behind countless personal sacrifices, particularly those made by women who choose to invest their entire being into the growth and success of others. Whether it's children, partners, siblings, or a family at large, those she supported begin to thrive. They rise, flourish, and reach heights she once dreamed of for herself. And in doing so, they become the very embodiment of her hopes and, unintentionally, of her absence. The success of others, especially those she nurtured, is often held up as a testament to her love, and rightly so. Their confidence, stability, and achievements are built on the foundation she provided, emotionally, mentally, practically. She created the space, offered the tools, and held the weight so they could move freely. What is often overlooked, however, is the quiet burden that remains with her, the emotional cost of seeing others become what she could have been had her own path not been diverted. There is a paradox in witnessing someone else become everything you ever hoped to be. On one hand, it's fulfilling, a validation of her effort, love, and sacrifices. On the other, it's isolating. Their rise is a reminder of all she postponed or relinquished. The joy is real, but so is the ache, and that duality is rarely acknowledged. What compounds this further is that those who benefit from her sacrifice may never fully understand its depth, not out of malice, but out of unawareness. They were too young, too focused, or too supported to realize the extent of what she gave. To them, her presence was constant, her stability assumed, and her choices invisible. It is only with time, often much later, that the realization might dawn. Their light was powered by someone else's dimming. This gap in understanding can create a quiet distance. She may not voice it, and they may not notice it, but it lingers in the background. Gratitude, when offered, may feel surface level. Recognition, if it comes, may be delayed, and so while they become everything, successful, independent, celebrated, she remains quietly in the wings, proud, yet emotionally weathered. There is a profound weight in becoming the reason behind someone else's success, especially when it comes at the cost of one's own dreams. It demands more than endurance. It requires emotional strength, humility, and deep selflessness. But it also requires acknowledgement, not just in words but in understanding. To honor such a journey is to go beyond thank yous. It is to see her sacrifice not as background support, but as central to the story. Because while they became everything, it was never by accident. It was through her. And that truth deserves to be. Time has a way of peeling back the layers of understanding. What once seemed ordinary is later recognized as extraordinary. This is especially true in the case of silent sacrifices, particularly those made by women, whose devotion was so constant, so integrated into daily life, that its depth went unnoticed in the moment. Only with distance, age, or reflection do those she supported begin to truly comprehend the cost of what she gave. And often by then her presence has changed, physically, emotionally, or metaphorically, leaving only the echo of what she once was in their lives. The echo of her absence is not always defined by physical departure. Sometimes it's the quiet realization that her laughter doesn't fill the room the way it used to, that her advice is no longer offered as freely, or that her dreams, once shelved, were never taken down again. It is in these subtle voids that her past sacrifices are finally understood. As those she nurtured grow older, step into adulthood, or assume responsibilities of their own, they begin to feel the gravity of what she carried, often alone and without complaint. Gratitude, when it finally arrives, is usually wrapped in hindsight. It is only after they have struggled, juggled, or sacrificed something themselves that they begin to connect the dots. The meals always ready, the emotional availability, the unwavering support, these weren't givens, they were choices, her choices, and each one came with a cost. She never made them pay. But along with gratitude can come guilt, a soft, haunting kind that whispers rather than shouts. The guilt of not noticing sooner, the guilt of assuming her dreams were smaller because she made herself smaller, the guilt of accepting her sacrifices as a norm rather than an offering. This emotional reckoning often arrives too late for direct repair, but its presence can reshape how they view her legacy. No longer just as a caregiver or background figure, but as a silent architect of their strength. The echo of her absence also forces a deeper question. Who was she, really, beyond what she gave? For many, it sparks a desire to know the woman behind the role, her fears, her ambitions, her untold stories. Sadly, by the time these questions are asked, she may have moved beyond the desire to share them, or the opportunity to ask may have passed entirely. Recognition delayed is still recognition, but it must lead to more than guilt. It must evolve into reverence, into honoring her in action and memory. Whether through changed perspectives, renewed relationships, or the passing of her values with deeper awareness, the echo she leaves behind should not fade. It should grow louder, clearer, and more honored with time. Because if she gave up everything for others to rise, the least they can do is ensure her. To view her journey solely through the lens of sacrifice is to miss its deeper truth. She didn't simply give up, she transformed. What may have looked like the end of her story was, in fact, a quiet evolution. Through every act of selflessness, she became more than the sum of what she let go. Her identity may have shifted, but it didn't disappear. It matured, deepened, and found purpose in places beyond recognition or reward. She became the foundation upon which others stood, not as a shadow, but as strength. And perhaps her becoming isn't defined by titles or timelines, but by the lives she shaped and the values she imprinted. In giving everything, she may have discovered a different kind of greatness, one not celebrated in spotlight, but immortalized in legacy. She didn't vanish. She became something greater, essential, eternal, and irreplaceable.